welcome to another episode of Sports Spring on Western Spring Television, where we give you stories making headlines in the ever-busy world of sports. My name is Joseph. ATEWE, good morning. And
I am NENGI ERNEST-ADEMOLA. Good morning, and thanks for joining us on a Tuesday edition of Sports Spring on Western Spring Television. A whole lot to talk about as usual. Now, the Remo Stars Club is in the news, in the media all over for a very interesting reason. We'll be talking about that. And aside from that, we do also know that the Euros 2024 qualifiers is on, and definitely the 2023 AFCON qualifiers still going on because we have fixtures slated for today. Now, we'll also begin from the local scene, where we'll start and talk about the Remo Stars. Welcome on board once again, Joseph. Let's start off from the local scene. Let's talk about Remo Stars making the headlines yet again for another interesting reason. It's something to reckon with so far.
Well, Remo Stars, we understand that Shoname has splashed 280 million on his squad, and that's more than enough motivation for the guys, if you ask me. And I did discuss this before we came on air, talking about how other clubs, should take a cue from these. And it's a welcome development, honestly. And I know how far it will go in the lives of these players.
And definitely getting into details of that one, the club's chief executive officer, in person of Kunle Shoname, gifted players, technical medical staffs and supporters with handsome financial rewards. Now, they got details of the varying prizes ranging from 1.5 million naira upward to 20 million naira following an impressive 2023 NPFL season. Now, only losing out on the title to Eyimba based on a single-digit goal difference tally. Now, Shoname was proud of his staff, including the backroom staff, technical crew and medics, as he splashed the cash across the board, with every department getting their fair share of the manna. And according to league's reporter, Kunle Shoname dished out a culminating sum of 28 million naira to the team for finishing second in the league following the playoff round, while securing a slot to feature on the continent in next season's CAF Champions League. Of course, Remo had a stellar performance during the regular season, as well as finishing 1 point less than Group A leaders Bendel Insurance, losing just twice all season long. And according to what was given out for the financial reward by the department, for the players, they got 20 million naira. For the technical and medical crew, they got 5 million naira. For the media team, they got 1.5 million naira, and as well as the supporters, not leaving out the supporters, they also got 1.5 million. And up next for Remo Stars is the Nigeria Super 8 preseason championship, where the Sky Blue Stars will face off against Shooting Stars Sports Club in a Southwest Derby clash billed for the 23rd of June 2023 by 5 p.m. Now, Joseph, you didn't make mention of this. I think about a few days back, we're actually talking about this and how playing for a particular club representing the state and all of that based on athletics and, of course, football players is a privilege, a very rare one, which should be honored. And in turn, definitely these players should be able to get sort of motivation. But then if you're not capable, it doesn't mean that you should, out of happiness, actually promise these players and you would not be able to fulfill it at the end of the day.
Well, it's a different case for Remo Stars. I mean, there's a club owned by, not too sure,
privately owned, maybe
a billionaire, if I'm correct. And I mean, the 280 million is nothing compared to what these guys, and this money is not that they don't have it right now, but then it will be disbursed, I think, in days, and this has been confirmed. So definitely these guys will get the money, and that is what the officials and what's the name right now, the kids of the club are saying, that they will get the money. But then going back to the states and the promises they make, the empty promises, even with the national team, at some point, the Super Eagles of 94 had to wait for 2 decades, to get their promised houses and lands there. And many of them had died even before that time. So, I mean, they should take a cue from the man Shoname. And this is not the first time he's doing this. You speak to some local players, it's now a dream to play for Remo Stars.
Yeah. Exactly, because of the motivation they get daily. So congratulations to them. We do hope that when definitely next season starts, for them to represent us at the continent, they will be able to do well and get more of this motivation. This is enough to be able to take them through. Now, Joseph, let's switch sides and talk about the Federation Cup finals, which is slated for tomorrow at the Stephen Keshi Stadium. I think both the women and men will be having their finals tomorrow. the women's finals will be between Bielsa Queens and Rivers Angels. And aside from that, for the men's finals, we would have Bendel Insurance of Benin City and Enugu Rangers International Club. And I think this particular one is going to spark a whole lot of memories concerning the Federation Cup. It's going to date back as 1978, 1981, where the very first encounter was the very final encounter in 1978 would be between Remo Stars will be between Enugu Rangers and Bendel Insurance, and that was the very first one. Bendel Insurance carried 3-0. That one ended in 1978, and in 1981, I do understand the fact that, and I know that Enugu Rangers were able to sort redemption for themselves, and they came out victorious in that one, 2-0. And this time around, we are going to be facing off tomorrow at the Stephen Keshi Stadium, and en route to the finals. In the semi-finals, they had a whole lot to deal with. Talking about Bendel Insurance, who won based on penalties against Warri Wolves 4-2, and their counterparts at their opponent, Rangers International, edging Plateau United 1-0. So it's going to be a magnificent one. And if Tom Bendel Insurance is able to win this one, Joseph, they would stand a chance of picking one of the tickets to also represent at one of the CAF club competitions this year.
And it's going to be a huge tax for Bendel Insurance, considering the fact that even the regular season, they could not defeat what's the Enugu Rangers. And going into the Federation's Cup final competition, Enugu Rangers know how to play very well up against the newbies in the Nigeria Premier Football League. So I think it's going to be a tough one for Bendel Insurance. But then what is at stake would be that motivation for them, which is getting a ticket to the continent. It's not about just winning, you get a ticket to the continent if you win the Federation Cup. So it is very important for Bendel Insurance at the moment.
Exactly. All right, let's move forward and talk about the 2023 AFCON qualifiers. Remember, when we started the show, I did make mention of the fact that the 2023 AFCON qualifiers has been agog. Yesterday, we named some of the countries who have made it to the AFCON proper, Nigeria inclusive, the likes of Zambia, Guinea-Bissau, Equatorial Guinea inclusive, and the likes of Sao Tome and Principe, Liberia. All of them are out of the AFCON so far. But then something happened concerning this particular one. That was the match between Benin and Senegal. So at least 2 people have been killed and many others injured in a stampede during a qualifier game for the January 2024 African Cup of Nations in Cotonou, Benin Republic. The tragedy happened on Saturday as Benin's Cheetahs and Senegal's Teranga Lions were about to compete at the Stade du General Mathieu. This is according to the local media and French broadcaster, as they reported. Now, minutes before the kickoff, public attention shifted from the football players to the stadium stand due to an inrush of fans. Those at the entrance tried to force their way in, causing a stampede as it collided with those who had just entered. And this is according to a witness report. And on Sunday, Benin Sport Minister gathered all parties involved with the event, from organizers to security officers, to understand what caused the deadly incident. And for all matches of the country's national team, access is free, but a pass is required to enter through the venue's gate. And according to Sports Africa News, the Beninese government announced 48 hours before the event that people could collect their tickets from 9 distribution points, which were eventually overwhelmed. And at the end of the day, I think trying to manage this fund, I think it's a very hard task to do. We also hear that I think 2 people died from this particular stampede. Trying to manage funds, a very, very hard one. Of course, we actually had the same incident in the UEFA Champions League, I think 2 seasons back. And of course, that caused a whole lot of controversies. So definitely things are in place to be able to see how they can ensure that there are more distribution points for fans to actually get tickets in order to avoid a stampede or any other situation. All right, to be correct, I think this it still boils down to poor administration. It still boils down to poor organization. The UEFA Champions League was a mistake, and nobody died. They only got injured. And because the fans became unruly, trying to beat police officers and security guards who were there. But in Africa, these things have continued to happen. I don't know how many capacity stadium. There's a stadium in Benin that people will be dying. Give or take, that stadium should not be more than 40 or 45,000. And these are fans you should be able to correct. You recall that more than 6 people also died in Yaoundé during the African Cup of Nations. Another 14 in Morocco. So it's an African thing, and these things need to stop.
You go to the Camp Nou, it's an 80, if I'm correct, 60 or 80,000 capacity stadium. You can't hear such thing happen because most times you have tickets being sold online. You don't need to queue to get tickets. If you go for competitions in African countries, what you get is people lining up to buy tickets. This is 2023. As a continent, we can grow past that. Purchase your tickets online, and that will save us all this, because the fans definitely were struggling to get tickets when two people lost their lives. So it's something they need to address, but unfortunately, it will still happen.
Of course, and we'll keep talking about it because that is our job, and we do hope that each and every of this would be carefully handled in order to avoid death when it comes to fans getting in their tickets to watch their countries actually play. Now, let's move forward.
And sorry, just to add to that, you see, we as Africans, we keep saying something hopefully, and we just hope, we pray. I know those are the right words to use, actually, but then it will keep happening. See, people need to take responsibility. People need to pay for some actions. For something like this, somebody needs to pay. Because at the end of the day, you just sweep it under the carpet. I'm sorry to move away from even sport. I like what is happening in Kano State, where a new governor comes in, destroys every of the things that were built by the former governor Gwanduje, built with taxpayers' money, and nobody will pay because he probably doesn't like the governor or doesn't like the structure. It is very annoying. People need to pay. If something like this have happened, who are those who are in charge of the ticket sales? They need to pay. It's not hopefully. People need to be jailed for things to work.
Exactly. We'll see how things pans out to be. Absolutely, everyone definitely would share your thoughts, Joseph. But then once again, we'll keep seeing how these things can be handled carefully. Now, let's move over and talk about the 2023 Women's World Cup. For Randy Waldrum and his girls, he has been able to unveil the list, excluding the likes of Ngozi Okobi, Ogene, and there's been a whole lot of controversy surrounding that one. As stakeholders have come out to talk about the fact that exclusion has something to do maybe with Coach Randy Waldrum or concerning our health. Now, aside from that, we do know that unlike Nigeria's Super Falcon team, which has only one local player, the Moroccan head coach, Renaud Padros, has listed 8 local players among the 28 players he listed in the provisional players for the 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup. Now, 8 players from local giants ASFA were also named in the squad, highlighting the contribution of the club that forms the core of the Moroccan women's national team. The Frenchman unveiled the eagerly awaited list on Monday, and the country's key players will be part of the preparation camp for the upcoming global competition. And the unveiling of the squad marks a significant milestone for women's football in Morocco, as the nation eagerly anticipates their team's performance on the global stage. Of course, we'll see that one and how it pans out to be, because Morocco will face Italy on July 1st, followed by another friendly match against Switzerland on July 5th. And the French coach will need to drop 5 players from the squad, while the team down to 23 players, and communicate the final list to FIFA by the 10th of July. Should things like this be associated to the Super Falcons of Nigeria?
I think we've talked about the Moroccan national team, both the male and female, and the progress they've witnessed over the years. That's because they had a plan. Imagine a team going to the AFCON, as if for the first time or second time, and getting to the final, losing narrowly to the South African side, led by Tembi Catalana there. And they also lost to, they defeated the Super Falcons, even though it was on penalties. But you could see the inexperience in the girls as a data, but getting to the final was a statement. You will also see what happened. You saw what happened rather with the guys getting to the semi-finals, not of the African Cup of Nations, but of the World Cup. For the first time, the bookmakers are saying that the teams representing Africa at the World Cup might prove a point. One of them is Morocco, the other is Nigeria. We also know that the Zambian team finished third at the African Cup of Nations. So I'm excited to see these girls go. But then you spoke about local players. It has been a tradition with the North African teams to always deal with their local players, because they have a league that is worthy of watching. So why would I be scouting for one boy who is playing, say, for Tottenham, who probably doesn't understand the rhythm, doesn't understand the technique of how the Moroccan FA, how the template was built? So what they do is that they teach these guys locally. They pay them well. If you move from the Nigerian league to the Egyptian league or the Moroccan league, to me, it's a success, because they pay you weekly and they pay you in dollars. In Nigeria, you have a player earn 200,000, naira per month. So things are working there. So the 8 players picked from the local scene might even be the difference at the World Cup for them.
Let's see how it pans out to be for them, because that will be their very first ever appearance in the Women's World Cup, and they have a very tough opponent in the group. They have the likes of Germany, South Korea, and Colombia, who will challenge Morocco at the group stage of the tournament. So we wish them all the best, because our Super Falcons is also there, and we'll see how things pans out to be for them. We do hope that we'll have that performance that could actually spark up a whole lot for us to go find the World Cup.
All right, let's talk about Congo. They face expulsion at the moment, and the consequences might be brutal.
Exactly, the consequences might be brutal. Now, I think that boils down to also administration. Same problem we've been talking about facing Africa as a whole. The World Soccer governing body has sent a warning signal to the Congo Football Federation on their possible expulsion from the upcoming 2026 World Cup qualifiers, except they paid their former coach, Sebastian Main. Now, the Congolese Federation has been indebted to the Belgian tactician since 2019, and the Court for Arbitration for Sport has ruled in favor of the coach. The football body has decided not to pay the coach, and FIFA has insisted on the payment within the stipulated time. The FIFA disciplinary committee informed Congo to compensate Sebastian Main within 60 days, and if the new deadline is not respected, the national team will be suspended from all FIFA competitions and will not be able to participate in the qualifiers for the next World Cup.
I think this thing is an African thing, just as we said.
Yeah, just like you rightly
said. And just like you have in Nigeria, where coaches are not being paid. Now, with the defense of the government and the defense of the administrators when it comes to sport, they're always quick to say that we are broke and, you know, we don't have enough money. So you might want to buy that lie, because if you look at, I'm sure if you Google the 10 poorest countries in the world, African countries will dominate. So it means that the little resources they are getting, they probably want to invest in health. They want to invest in infrastructure, transportation, blah, 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 because they feel sports is entertainment that can come in later. But then if you understand the game well, you will know that in every competition you participate, it beats the qualifiers. You get money from the confederation. Absolutely. And this money are huge. But because, just like you have politicians after their tenure, you probably have EFCC or the ICPC come to arrest them. You can't do that in sport. You get what I mean? Because they will cite government interference. If that should happen, Amaju Pinnick should be in jail. Amaju Pinnick should be in jail if that is to play. And so that has been a problem, because these guys are not being investigated after they leave. Because I wonder why you will sign a coach. And don't forget that before you sign a coach, there's always a clause on the contract that you will be paid at least a year. That's at least for a year, and nothing will affect the salary. The coach is appointed after 4 months. They're telling you they're owing him 3 months salary. So people need to be investigated. But unfortunately, this is something that will be discussed at the FIFA Congress, where they have to stop that nonsense of saying government interference. People need to pay. Exactly, people need to pay. And we do hope that that would not be the situation surrounding Nigeria very soon, because we might be hearing from them very soon. They're talking about non-payment of coaches' salary, because I think we've been able to sweep these things under the carpet for so many years now. Just like you rightly stated, Joseph, it's an African problem. It boils down to the managerial, to the management, the people in charge of these things, who do not take sports so seriously and who do not see it as a viable income earner, even to the country. But we'll follow this one closely and see how things pans out to be for the Congolese team. Now, before we go on a break and give you some highlights of matches that were played yesterday in the Euros 2024 qualifiers. Remember, I told you guys that the 2023 AFCON qualifiers is still on, and we're going to be having matches today. Now, in qualification group for Group C, we would have Burundi against Namibia by the hour of 2 p.m. And for Group D, we would have Ethiopia face off with Malawi. And for Group I, we would have Sudan go against Mauritania. All right, let's go on a break and give you highlights from matches played yesterday. When we come back, more stories making headlines in the world of sport. We'll be back.
Bremen for a special game, the 1000th game for Germany, a game also promoted